I am Hannah Abdi, also known as Hannah Codes in the online world. I'm thrilled to be hosting this event and wanted to share my excitement with you all. Over the past decade, I've immersed myself in the world of technology, and blending my passions for the arts, heritage, and technology is a fusion that I'm super excited for. This promises to be a gathering of innovative minds exploring the fascinating intersection of creativity, technology, and artificial intelligence. First and foremost, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our funders, the Heritage Lottery Fund, the Arts Council, and our partners for this event, Oxford House and Somalis in Tech. Without you guys, this event wouldn't have been possible. Your contributions have enabled us to create an engaging and insightful experience for all participants and a platform for young and upcoming artists as well as innovators. We genuinely believe in the power of collaboration and knowledge sharing, and we're confident that this event will foster meaningful connections, innovative speakers, and we've curated a diverse lineup of speakers. We'll also have some poetry performances too. So we have a number of Creative Cafe events that will be held almost every month until Somali Week in October. So we encourage you to check out our Eventbrite page. I've put up the next event that's happening at the end of next month online, which is an open mic event, which will be super amazing. So please do check that out. It's for that too. Thank you again to our funders, including the Heritage Fund and the Arts Council, for your support. And also we appreciate our partners, Oxford House and Somalis in Tech, for collaborating with us for this event. So let's unite to explore innovation and create an unforgettable gathering. I'm now going to pass over to our fantastic host, Noura. Thank you.
Hello everyone, salam alaikum. Welcome one and all. It's really great to see so many of you here, especially since this is meant to be like a day of celebration with friends and family. So this is really encouraging to know that the community is fully supporting what CADE is doing. And this event is in partnership with Somalis in Tech. We have a great panel discussion that's going to take place that I will be hosting, as well as some great performances like Hannah said. So without further ado, what I want to do, just to kind of get a bit of a pulse check. Are we feeling good? Nah, that was dead. Are we feeling good? Yeah. Amazing. So we are going to introduce our first speaker, Mehdi Abdi, founder of Ornament Technologies and Diffuse Agency, is an innovative entrepreneur with a passion for creative technology and community impact. His thoughts, leadership, systems architecture, and trend forecasting abilities are exceptional, and he always takes a proactive approach to his endeavors. Mehdi takes an action attitude, has enabled him to achieve great success, making him an inspiring figure in the design and tech industry. Give him a round of applause. And we don't just stop there. Harun Osman, a cybersecurity consultant by day, working for one of the biggest banking organizations in the world. Give that a round of applause. By night, his passions lies in creating exam practice, an AI exam prep solution. I actually had a chance to play around with it earlier. It's amazing. And delving into the realms of AI development and AI security risk management. One more round of applause. And for the female representation, give that a big round of applause. Abira Hussain is a PhD student at UCL, specializing in Somali heritage, digital archives, open culture and glam, GLAM. As a curator and independent researcher, she has collaborated with prestigious institutions like the Barbican, Magnum Photos, British Museum, and the National Archives. Give that a round of applause. She's literally putting our culture on the map. Abira has organized exhibitions and workshops that engage with the Somali community and contribute to research in the heritage sector. Notable projects include the VR experience Coming Home in partnership with the British Museum and Nomad. Give that a round of applause. I think you guys know the trend now, so come on. And last but not least, we have Nomadic Libah. That is the stage name. I'm not going to expose your government, don't worry. Founder of Poetically Perplexed. He is a creative writing facilitator, innovative solution specialist, and also a rhythmic-assisted poet using poetry to reimagine the world around him, bringing the audience into his world and allowing them to discuss and imagine solutions for themselves. Give him a round of applause. Oh yeah, and my name's Nora. I'm your host. I am a consultant. I have 10 years experience in the game. I work specifically in strategy. My specialisms are communications, diversity, equity and inclusion, and employer branding. Some of my clients include the BBC, L'Oreal, the Digital Sisterhood, and many more. So give me a round of applause. Amazing. So I'm really out of my element because this is like the tech bro space, right? So I'm going to try my best to keep up with everything, and I'm sure that the panelists themselves will do an amazing job just explaining what it is that they do. But before we get into it, there are some amazing projects that everybody has been working on. So I want to give a bit of an opportunity for you guys to demonstrate for us what you've been working on, all the exciting things to come, before we get into the main meat of it all, so to speak. So if we want to start off with Harun's project.
So yeah, for the last couple of weeks, or actually really 2 months, I've kind of been playing around with the AI and stuff like that. And kind of just, one of the ideas I came up with, that I kind of just been working on, was an AI exam generator. So essentially you just put in a topic, and you can essentially select what type of exam, such as like a multiple choice exam, open-ended questions, or like a true or false exam, and any sort of topic, and the exam will basically generate you those questions. So you can select the different parameters, such as like how many questions you want, how difficult the exam you want it to be, and it will just kind of pop up. And then it's kind of just a revision tool, so if you're learning and you're trying to take exams, it will kind of just help you in being able to basically brush up your skills before you actually take the exam. With this cybersecurity, the whole reason I made it was, with this cybersecurity you have industry certifications, but the problem is that when it comes to actually learning for those exams, the material is extremely expensive. Like the books, the mock exams are really expensive, so this was kind of just my first foot, and kind of just making that way easier for people to kind of just improve and continue learning within their careers, if they're a student, learn while they're at school. So yeah, so the exam just came up, and then you would just answer that, so like you can answer that. So once you answer the exam, essentially, it will mark it for you as well. So you'll be able to know if you got the answer correct. If you didn't get the answer correct, we'll give you some feedback if you got it incorrect. Yeah, just a simple little app just to get my foot in the door. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We kind of had an opportunity to play around with it, and the question that I inputted was Islamic history and the contributions of Black Muslim to Islamic legacy, and it was really cool actually. Some of the questions, American centric, but that's technology for you. But yeah, really useful, and I think it's a great way to expand the way students interact with learning as well. Just instead of my day, it was very much mock exam, paper, pen, go through it. And this is like such a new and innovative way to be able to learn and actively learn and kind of review previous answers all in one place and measure yourself against that. So I think that's such a great tool, something that I haven't actually seen in a minute. But again, I'm not a tech person, so I don't know. So did anybody else want to demonstrate something before we get into the questions? Yeah, let's get into it.
Hello guys, my name's Mehdi. I'm the creative technologist of Ornament Technologies, founded 2 years ago. So far we have 8 applications. Really good friends with Harun, so congratulations on your first app. It's major and super proud. So this is Ornament Technologies. So far we have 7 apps live, and for me, being in this space for the last year and a half and talking to friends and seeing where the trends are going, I thought to myself, instead of making one app, let me try get as many ideas out as fast as possible to progressively learn and also work on weak points, which is primarily sales and marketing. So I haven't done a good point on that in regards to continuous to building, but we're capping it at 10. So far, I have 4 team members who are all talented, and I can't take credit for myself, have all helped me engineer and build the vision of what Ornament Technologies is. So the first platform, and my most favorite one, is called Memento, which started off being a data analytics platform for galleries and museums. When you go to galleries and museums, you go in without much knowledge about the artist or the current exhibition, and you walk out. And going to many galleries and art fairs growing up, I found that there's always this small level of guilt. And when someone, naturally gives you a lot of value, you always want to give something back. And that's what I solved. So for the first app, we didn't really reinvent the wheel. We solved a small problem in a nice, concise way. So now galleries and museums and now brand activations can collect data on their audience, but also do that in a benevolent way. And what I mean by benevolent is creating it as a two-way transaction. People leave their data knowing what they're signing up for, but also get rewarded for that in return. And working with Matches Fashion, Jaguar, and a few other institutions, those incentives are always different. And that's the beauty of Memento. And it all started off from a fascination of capturing moments of time. And that started off as an art project. And then by trying to validate that and go out and do research and development, I found that capturing moments of time is something that doesn't need to live within art. It could also be applied in interacting with these spaces in a different way using software. And then we have Kaiser.ai, which allows people to create personalized versions of ChatGPT to automate workflows. So it's being used in industries like property, design, copywriting, and many others. And last but not least, we have Heymesh, which is a text to 3D platform that saves 3D designers so much time in order for them to create 3D renders in minutes and not hours. And in the future, when everyone has a 3D printing machine in their garage, they can use Heymesh to 3D print extra knives and forks when too many guests come to the house. But yeah, the future's fun, and I'm all about trying to find creative solutions and package it in software. And that's enough about me.
Round of applause. Already you can see the intersection between creativity and technology, and how technology just brings all the, brain points that we have and imagination that we have to life in a really succinct and programmatic way. So it's always really interesting to hear. Ebira.
Yes, so yeah, I would describe myself as kind of tech adjacent. I'm not deeply in it, but I definitely use it. And it kind of started from my initial interactions with working with museums and archives, and feeling actually that the representation of kind of Somali culture or African culture wasn't how I understood or experienced it. I felt, looking at a museum being very kind of static and thinking about Somali culture, which often includes, sound, movement, is associated with the place. I didn't feel like the traditional mainstream representations of heritage actually work for us. And so that's kind of where my interest in technology and immersive technology came about. And so I worked with a tech company called Nemesine, and we started to explore things like immersive technology, which using Unity, which is a games engine, we're able to put in the object, the sound, as well as using motion capture to show how an object would be used. And so it was thinking about when you do have, multivocality and sometimes when our heritage is collective, how is that expressed when often you go into a museum and you see an object and you see a caption? it doesn't, for me, it didn't connect. So the purpose of that was to do that. At the moment, what I'm working on is a sound piece. And so, as I mentioned, I'm interested in spatial sound. I'm interested in the fact that our heritage is experienced in a group. You know, there's call and response. Sometimes there's dance associated with that. And so I guess my reflections were, if I want to feel more connected to my culture, that was one way of experiencing it, particularly in terms of heritage capture as well. Oral history is a big part in how people would record stories or the past, and it would be very linear. I mean, someone would ask a question, you'd get a response. And so museums now are digitizing a lot of content, but again, it still isn't the way that I understood it and I experienced it. And so part of using the immersive technology was trying to kind of take back some control of how African heritage is represented. And particularly at the moment, I'm focusing on poetry and work songs, and thinking that, and also thinking about how to connect diaspora knowledge, community-based knowledge, and museum knowledge, since we're living here in the UK and we're kind of stuck between two traditions. And thinking, well, as my aunts always call me, fish and chips, how do I kind of better understand what it is to be Somali? But also, how do I understand that within the traditions here in the UK? Where if we think about how we learn about our culture, often the way it's expected is through museums and archives. And so part of the use of technology is trying to say, well, actually, this space is quite malleable. It allows you to do things differently. And you know, we're already online. I think people use social media, people use TikTok, people use other methods to express themselves, because often they don't find that representation in mainstream media. So yeah, the focus has been around that, and also thinking about radio as well. As I mentioned, that was a big part of Somali culture in the 50s and 60s, and was the way that we transmitted knowledge. But I guess because of the Civil War and the drought, there's been a dislocation and a disruption. And so going back to technology is a way of trying to kind of connect that intangible knowledge that would have been passed on through word of mouth, and using the things that we're using every day to return back to that.
Which is so needed. Essentially what you do is digital storytelling, if I was to minimize it, right? And as much as we can rely on our memories to tell stories, memories can fade. You know, we don't know whether or not our memories are going to be with us forever, old age, illness, etc. So technology is really going to support us with being able to maintain those stories and have them, reach generations long after we're gone. So thank you for the work that you do. Last but not least.
Yeah. One second. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah, this one ain't got. Oh, now it's working. So my name's Ali. I go by Nomadically Bah. I'm a creative artist, as well as I specialize in tech solutions. So using technology to create practical solutions for problems that companies and individuals face on a day-to-day basis. So leveraging new technologies such as AI, artificial intelligence, IoT, which basically just means anything connected to the internet, right? So a lot of this terminology can really confuse people when they start hearing IoT, AR, VR, but breaking things down in a practical way so they can understand the use in whatever field they're in, whether it be creative writing, whether it be music production, whether it be any field, but understand their specific use case. And having a creative writing background, I've used it to create a platform called Idea Now, which helps people generate ideas when they have writer's block for storytelling, and bridge the gap between idea and reality. And as we are in the creative space, and as we understand how technology is constantly advancing, the gap between understanding and application is what I try to bridge through just breaking things down in simple words.
I appreciate breaking it down in simple words, for sure. With the expansion of artificial intelligence, AI, coming onto the scene in the last, let's say, year and a half, for me it was such a moment, because I think my first introduction to artificial intelligence or the concept of AI was through iRobot, the film that Will Smith is starring in. And from there, my fear of what AI would do in the world very much was cemented there. So to see it advance so much in the short amount of time that it's kind of like come into the mainstream audience and usage is something really interesting that I think deserves exploration and discussion. So I'm really glad that we're actually having this panel to kind of demystify, I guess, some of those myths, add a bit of context to what AI actually is, and see the value that AI can bring to us moving forward within the creative and technological spaces. So with that being said, the first question that I want to pose, and I'm not going to pick anyone at random, don't worry, you can kind of like choose yourselves. What does AI mean for the world today?
I feel like AI means so much for the world today because it allows us to think in new ways and form new ideas. It's also an accelerant to what technical innovation may have happened. So it's not new. It's been around for a while, but as the old saying goes, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed yet. And I feel like that year has come for all of us to now take advantage of the tools that we have now. So a lot of people will try, scare you away from technological advancements, but that's the main thing about what I love about technology and software. It's truly a leveled playing field. Everyone that has an internet connection and has a few ideas can validate that in almost as little as 48 hours and build a product around that. Like my good friend Harun, he built the app in 2 weeks and way faster than I thought he would have done it. We jumped on a call, and 14 days later has a fully functional app. Anyone here can do it. It's progressively getting easier to do. And I feel like with all of the lights and the hype surrounding AI, there's also darkness to this new industry. The same ways it could be used for good and to help us learn better, conceptualize ideas faster, and have conversations through different cultures and languages. It could also be used in so much malevolent ways, and that's stuff that we need to understand, detect, and combat. And through all of these new apps, I feel like we'll be able to define those faster and faster. The reason behind my strategy of building 10 apps is to understand how to do it and understand what the best ways to do it and get all of the ideas that I thought were great out to finally focus on the one and two that will bring the most change and value to the environment. So to answer your question, I feel like tech is ultimately great in the hands of benevolent players, but could also be as dangerous if it goes into the wrong hand. But my message is make use of what we have at the moment.
I just want to add to that, if you don't mind. Totally agree with exactly what you said. I want to just add on the creativity part, since we're in a creative kind of show, or training, that really. AI, what it kind of means is, for me, it's bringing, like you mentioned, ideas to reality even quicker than you've ever done it before. So if you ever had an idea and you can't explain to anybody, you don't know how to put it into the real world. The AI is just, using AI and leveraging the AI, you can kind of create new products, whether it's art pieces, whether it's poems, whether it's apps. AI, once you leverage it, you can really speed up the time from ideation to reality. So that's what I really love about AI. I would have never built this app that I built in 2 weeks without AI. I'm being that serious. So with AI, it's really easy. It's super easy. Coding has become really easy. Like you said, writer's block and things of that nature. That's probably become a lot easier with AI and just developing ideas into actual reality. So, like you mentioned, the last thing I want to point out is definitely with AI being so powerful, there's definitely risks, there's concerns, there's security issues. I hope we get into that today as well. But I feel like you mentioned, you can't miss out. Like, you have to get on and try it out, play around. All the different tools, there's thousands of tools at this point. So I feel like if you're not playing on it now or just trying it out now, in 5 years you may regret a little bit, having not been associated with it or getting used to it early enough. So yeah, just wanted to mention that.
Great addition. Not only was that a great addition, we also have Hannah Abdi on the panel now, so can we just give her a warm welcome? You're bringing the female ratio up, I appreciate it. Balance. So does anybody else want to answer that question before we move on? Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. I quickly wanted to jump in because I've been doing quite a lot within the AI space at the moment. I recently ran 2 workshops at the AI Summit, and I had over 300 people there that I ran a workshop for, and they used drones to move around and create a new thing, which was super fun to do. We used Node.js to get the beginners into that space, and we had drones flying around taking pictures, and then we had some drones that had some fans on them as well. I feel like I feel like people are more scared of AI, but I personally use AI to automate everything. Answering emails, Discord messages when I'm annoyed with some of my students and I don't want to be super rude. I'm like, okay, make this sound a bit nicer. I use it for event management. There's so many things I've used to automate my life. So I feel like AI should be something that's welcomed instead of looking at it like, oh my God, this is going to take my job one day, but something that you should learn how to use to your advantage as well. And also do cool things with like drones and learning how to automate your coffee machine in the morning so you don't have to get out of bed, like things like that. So tech is a fun space, I'd say. So NAI is one of them that are opening it up to everyone. So you can literally type in things now where you can edit pictures, and there's so many cool tools that you can do without any coding knowledge as well. Yeah.
You've already kind of touched on the next question, which was going to be, how are you using AI today and what is it that you've built? I guess for somebody like me, similar to you, I very much use it as a tool to automate a lot of the day-to-day mundane things that we just kind of want to get one and done. Emails, for example. I love using ChatGPT for that purpose. But if you could kind of like talk a little bit more about what else you could potentially use the tools for, from ideation to process mapping and so on, just so that people get an idea of what they can actually do with AI as a tool that is going to be beneficial as opposed to like a scary place for them to venture.
I think one of the coolest things about AI, it minimizes the research time. So you can actually use it to get concise responses and results for different things. For instance, for example, let's say you're researching how to create a technical analysis for work or something. You could ask it specific questions and then ask it to ask you questions in response, and then answer the questions it gave you, which would give you a more specific outline for your research. So it bridges the gap between, oh, I don't know anything about this, to I'm very, very well informed, to now I have practical information I can use, apply, and create something with. So it really makes the gap between doing the whole because a lot of time research is the biggest phase for a lot of idea creation. Like if you're going into a whole new field you've never heard about. But bridging that gap between specifying your research to get very key information that you can actually apply, I think is one of the greatest tools that people don't really understand. And even just understanding how the space is moving. Using AI to learn about AI. That's a cool thing.
Did anyone else want to tackle that one?
I'm not an AI. I'm the kind of non-AI person. Again, I mentioned adjacent to everything. But I often see it being used within the archive space for tagging. A lot of archives will have vast number of records that have been digitized. And so a way for them to improve accessibility is to initially use machine learning to train the AI to be able to tag parts of the image. So it helps in that sense to be able to identify images. If you're searching using particular tags, I mean, that could be done by a person, but it would take a long time. Things like transcription as well. A lot of archival records are handwritten, and so sometimes it can be very difficult to be able to transcribe, and that's one way of speeding it up. I know that you mentioned using 3D models as well. If people are interested in using 3D models, that's one aspect where AI is being used. I don't know if the question's going to come around hesitation, but it's a challenge because particularly looking at kind of archives and catalogues and how knowledge systems were initially built, a lot of that comes from these traditions which were somewhat racist, somewhat colonial, and so my fear is that that actually continues in the technology, in the algorithms, and perpetuates bias. I think it does improve speed, but a lot of this data mining, a lot of this machine learning actually requires a lot of energy. There's a material cost. I think a lot of it seems somewhat intangible, but a lot of these data mines are placed in parts of the world where they tend to face the most effects of climate change, or sometimes the materials that are used for building these systems and these servers are also in countries where they are facing massive amounts of climate change and climate genocide. So I feel like the speed is great, but it's important, I think, to recognize that it has a tangible and a material effect on people's lives, as well as even with the tagging. Some of the issues that arise with that is often the data that's used is biased. In the end, it's built by people, even though a machine is implementing it and doing the work. That infrastructure is built by people who have biases, and that continues then to compound the issues. So it's hard to know what the benefits are and where the risk is. And I think sometimes it's part of the discussion, but I worry that it's not always, focused on as much.
I want to direct the next question to the creatives on the panel. I'm not saying that you're not creative, but you know what I mean. How has technology and the use of artificial intelligence influenced the creative process within your respective fields?
I can say firsthand that it's made things easier for a lot of people, but it's scared a lot of other people. So right now in the space, there's like text-to-video generators called Runway ML. You type in text and it generates up to a 15-second, 13-second video. And that scares videographers because they can potentially be out of a job the more that this technology advances. There's a text-to-image generator, Midjourney, DALL-E. You type in text and it creates images. So that could take photographers out of the game, potentially. But then I think across the board, there's become like an understanding that there's going to be a gap between the people who know how to use this technology and leverage it and create ideas, and they can streamline a lot of their services and their systems. And there's going to be the people who are wary because of the implementation to their own personal understanding of how it affects them, and maybe their own bias of technology is coming to take my job. But then you just have to look back to look forward. When people didn't know about the internet and never used the internet, there was a gap between the people who got on with the internet, and then there was a gap between the people who didn't use social media to the people who leveraged social media. So for me personally, I found it's helped integrating different technologies. Understanding AI is a technology, but there's other technologies similar which can actually help your process. Social media is one, the internet is one, your smartphone is one, but understanding how all these different technologies interact makes you create like an easier workflow. And yeah, go with the flow.
I guess it's integral to what I do. I found the technology space, whether it's social media, reflects our culture a lot more than potentially what mainstream platforms might do. It's a space where We have a lot more freedom to govern, to engage. If we look at kind of how Twitter space has been used, and people talk about Black Twitter, and so it has the capacity to allow, I guess, self-expression in that sense, and I use it in that sense to be able to leverage it to be able to reflect, as I mentioned, the kind of more embodied knowledge through either 3D objects or life-size characters that are rendered through motion capture, as well as kind of relating to what people are using. I said, as I mentioned, I'm interested in the role of technology and how people are using it. And at the moment now, people use WhatsApp, and that's how knowledge is produced for us. And people sending voice notes, and so it's thinking about how to connect to that space. And even particularly within the archival world, there is interest in looking at blockchain and thinking about more distributed technology, and that reflecting more of how we produce knowledge in terms of the collectivity, or reflecting interconnectivity and distributed systems, which is, I feel, how kind of our knowledge practices or indigenous practice can be mapped on to. So, yeah, I think it allows us to perhaps exist in space far better than perhaps how we exist physically. But yeah, there are challenges around that in terms of copyright, intellectual property, ownership of data. So those are. I guess it's also being able to manage your data, and I think that's one element that's also important in using technology as well.
Thank you. And you touched there slightly on the ethical side of things, how we look at artificial intelligence and the way that interacts with, just the human condition and where we might potentially be going wrong in terms of privacy. And so I want to kind of pivot that question to Harun a little bit, just because that's more so your background with cybersecurity. Let's talk through, the ethical issues around the use of artificial intelligence and how that can potentially impact us as we produce and develop, certain tools and platforms, and how that integrates actually with the creative spaces, and making sure that, I guess, they don't infringe upon the humanistic expression that we're so very much familiar with. Because I don't know about you, but when I started seeing like the AI generated for like photos, and I saw like a sixth finger, I was like, okay, we're out here now creating aliens. So I guess if you can touch on that as well, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of risks, a lot of concerns. It's a new space, not really, but it's kind of new space open to the public. So I always, kind of raise that question of legislation, what's right, what's wrong, ethics, things of that nature. You mentioned copyright, etc. Where does your data get stored when you kind of use AI? What type of data should you be using? What type of data shouldn't you be using? So to kind of just quickly summarize on it, a lot of these AI tools are using your data, so be careful with the data you're using. Make sure you're not using sensitive data. Make sure whatever idea you're inputting is pretty abstract and generic. Later on, you can just make it more detailed. But these tools and models are using our data at the end of the day to kind of train their own models and to get better, etc., etc. They haven't been very clear about how they're doing so, where they're keeping the data, etc., etc. It's a major issue, and it's well known within the cybersecurity industry. So within our industry, we rarely use AI. So far, we haven't really been touching on it, just because we deal with sensitive data all the time. So that's kind of one thing. So when it comes to ethics as well, when using AI, let's say a company uses AI, they need to definitely be wary of what type of model they're using and where that data came from, and how ethical that data came, like how ethical was it resourced, or was it kind of retrieved, and to make sure that the data is not really biased, so the AI doesn't come out with biased responses, etc., etc. So it's definitely a concern, something that's actively being worked on a day-to-day basis. We have a ton of different, when it comes to like just on an individual level, we have kind of a lot of issues with potential issues coming up with hackers, and like you mentioned, it depends on who's using AI. So a lot of attackers are definitely using AI, within the cyberspace. So scams are going to potentially become more sophisticated. Not just robocalls with like a robot talking. We're going to probably hear people talking, genuine people that you may think is like somebody real, but it probably is not. So we need to start really kind of getting used to the technology as soon as possible, because there probably will be cases where somebody may try to impersonate a family member of yours, may try to impersonate somebody who you know, for example, and they will probably sound very legitimate, just because how good AI is nowadays. So there's been a lot of issues with that. And then you've got a whole other thing when it comes to like deepfakes, videos coming out with people who look real, but they genuinely are not. And it's not just fooling people, it's also fooling software. So a lot of, when you talk about certain APIs, what I mean is like certain kind of online tools that use faces to kind of, let's say, guess celebrities, etc., etc. Deepfakes work extremely well. They like even the software itself can't, detect if it's real or not. It genuinely thinks it's real. So there's so many issues, but there's a lot of good things as well, because people are genuinely working on this. This is kind of like at the forefront of everybody's mind. So yeah, hopefully it's a lot of progress in this space, inshallah.
Inshallah.
I just wanted to add, be careful, because AI can speak Somali too. And when you hear all the dialects and gets it right, don't think it's an uncle calling you from down the road. It could be a machine. So be careful. And there's ways to be careful. Set like guardrails in place by having like a key word with your family that only your loved ones know. But this thing is real. People are doing it. People are getting scammed in this way. AI can speak Somali too.
I was going to quickly add, has anyone watched the recent Black Mirror episode where there was tons of deep fakes? No? Okay. So there's an episode where there's a super deep fake, and there's a Netflix episode, and it's happening in real time. So she's being impersonated by an actor. I think that will kind of help your brain understand what a deep fake is and that it's very real. Yeah.
A follow-up question I actually had to that, and it's just out of my own curiosity. When it comes to like intellectual property and like you coming up with things yourself, and now we have AI tools that can come up with basically the same idea, and you've put the idea out to market first. Like, what is that competition? How do we regulate that to ensure that the people who are actual real people get the due credit that they deserve, and companies aren't like taking people's ideas, essentially? Go for it.
So when it comes to any AI tool that you use, there's a master like copyright that they own. In their terms and agreements, if you read any single one of them, Midjourney, DALL-E, they actually own the master IP for it. But what you can do, because you have like a general ownership because you are the creator of this property, you can watermark your actual content that you've created. You could put a simple watermark in whatever colors you want. This property, this content is the ownership of your name, and with it has a timestamp. And that is a way that you could actually mark your ownership of it. And that's a way to combat it, but you have to understand, when it comes to AI tools, you have to read the terms and agreements. Any one of these platforms, they own like the overall arching. If they wanted to, they could take your property, your IP, and do whatever they want with it. But generally, they need the data as much as they can to feed their systems. But you can, that's one way to watermark your own content.
Thank you. Practical solutions. We love to hear it. The next question that we're going to get into is around our personal experiences using AI. I guess before I throw it to you guys, I'll actually share one of mine. So I have been in the grant application bag for a minute because I'm trying to like launch certain projects. And alhamdulillah, through the use of ChatGPT mostly, I've been able to not just expedite the research and development of that, but actually apply it into grant application format. And with that, alhamdulillah, like I was able to get 2 grants, one for a collective that I'm a part of, and another one to film a short documentary. So just an example of like how you can actually use AI to help you in your day-to-day, or even like the blue sky thinking of, oh, I wish I could do this. I wonder how I can do it, and like just pop it into AI. So any personal experiences outside of what you've shared with us today that you'd like to to let the audience in on?
I'll just go through it a little bit. Just generally kind of come up with ideas, branding. So the branding behind the app, for example, I use a lot of AI, so on the landing page, copywriting and stuff like that. I'm terrible at copywriting, so AI and GPT kind of did all of that for me. Just any sort of quick ideas. If I have like an idea and I want to get it live and see if it works, I kind of just use AI to kind of get it out there as soon as possible. Also kind of just generally kind of solving small coding issues. Of course, I try to keep my data very safe and I don't use any sort of specific information, but just to kind of solve problems for me, small little things, small little coding problems that I just can't figure out. That's kind of how I just use it on a day-to-day.
I use ChatGPT and some other AI platforms because I work with a load of brands to create like social media content, blog posts, things like that. So it just creates it in a more cohesive way. You can also pre-plan things using AI. I also use it for emails, as I said, and like I have a Roomba in the house that I've programmed to vacuum while I'm away. Coffee as well, that's one thing, so it sets it up in the morning beforehand. My students also use ChatGPT for fixing code bugs and errors. We're trying to figure out a way to create like a turn-in service for ChatGPT, so we can kind of see if it's been written by ChatGPT. So right now it's very manual, where we actually have to put the code in and be like, did you write this, or was this a student that actually wrote this? Is there something that's but yeah, code fixes, bugs, and yeah, day-to-day management as well. Yeah.
I use Bing. So Bing has ChatGPT 4 integrated into it. You can download it on your phone. And I go to people, tell me what's your name. They tell me their name, I type it into Bing, and it tells me everything online about them. So that's a cool little party trick.
Scary.
Yeah, you have to understand, when you have anything to do with any links with your name on the internet, Google works through something called SEO, search engine optimization. It's how you get ranked onto the top pages. So what ChatGPT 4, which is integrated into Bing, the new search engine by Microsoft, because Microsoft actually own ChatGPT, they have now integrated a function where you can use it as in search. So the same way you search for things on Google, you can search through on Bing, but you can ask it very specific questions and has access to the whole internet. So that's like a fun trick I do sometimes. And what I also do is I use it to create cover art for like books and stuff. And yeah, get as creative as you can with the idea. But that's a really cool one, the Bing one. So it's the way that it relays the information. So if you say, who is whatever your name may be, it would find every link on LinkedIn, every link on Google, and every link on the internet to do with them. And it would present the information as if someone was speaking back to you. This is X, Y, and Z. They like this. Oh, they really do this really well. And then you can ask it more specific questions. It's like a fact check.
You like blew their minds. It also helps with like company house as well, so you can see how much money somebody earns, for instance, or like how much money they've made. If you're interviewing for a company, see if they're going bankrupt. That's the kind of thing I use it for as well. I also use it in Notion too. So I don't know who uses Notion, but Notion, you can create like databases and different things. And now there's like a magic AI tool where you can just type in and it'll create you a whole database super quick. So work absolutely loves me right now. I'm like the star employee because everything's just done in 5 minutes. Yeah, that's a good tool to have.
One last thing I would like to say, if anybody does use any form of ChatGPT to actually write any text, also put it through an AI detector so it can actually fact check you to make sure. What it will do is it will, if you go to university and use Turnitin, is to check your plagiarism. The same type of thing with AI detector will check how much of it was generated by an AI. And there's a trick you can do. You can just put it back into ChatGPT and tell it, don't write it like an AI.
I would just like to add too, there's going to be thousands of different applications that help you streamline the process. So one thing I found is picking between 5 and 10 that amplify what you already know and what workflow you can automate helps. don't have to rely on the latest one that comes out. This is a tool that helps you express your creativity to a scale of 1,000 times more. Even like what would have took a group of 50 employees or individuals to do, now there's teams out there that can do it with a 2-person team. And there's one person teams of developers that have a roster of applications that are doing way more and turning over way more than large conglomerates. So it's a tool that there's going to be thousands. There's always going to be this new one on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube trying to sell you these ads. But find 5, streamline the process, and stick to that 5, and then watch your productivity scale and skyrocket. The latest is not always the best. So that's food for thought. Another tool, not another tool, but another way it helps is Instagram captions. Since using AI for Instagram captions, likes have been going up, so that's a nice one.
So I'm just a little bit conscious around timing, so this is probably going to be the last question. So I'm going to try my best to amalgamate 2 questions in one. You've already kind of touched on the different platforms that integrate AI as a tool. So how do you see the role of AI evolving generally across those platforms, and what realms they may be able to enter? And then also for anybody who is skeptical using, integration of AI into the work that they do, what's a reassuring factor that you could say just to kind of like ease the mind of the people, so to speak? Let me know if you need me to repeat that.
Just a quick one. I feel like everyone in the next 5 or 10 years will have an AI co-pilot. What I mean by co-pilot is that it will have enough data about you as an individual, how you act, how you talk, how you come up with decisions, what your calendar looks like. And that will streamline a lot of your day-to-day work processes. So everyone who ever wanted a personal assistant will have one, and it will help you complete those mundane tasks. And I feel like as this space progresses, there's also going to be so many more guardrails in place. I know the UK government have put up 100 million to AI safety and want to become a hub in servicing safety when it comes to this new technology. So AI pilots, co-pilots, and a safer environment online. You guys are so generous with these claps. I feel like I'm going to invite everyone to the next speaking engagement I'll do. And it's amazing to speak in front of people that have the same background as me, the same culture. And I definitely would like to do this more. So another round of applause. Oh, I love it. Thank you.
Just to add to that, like you mentioned, the growth is just kind of every day. Every day there's something new coming out. Every day the space is growing exponentially. Within, like I was mentioning before, within the cybersecurity space, when it comes to being fearful, if you have any worries, etc., the professionals within the space, within the cybersecurity space, are doing the most in terms of trying to put safe, guardrails. Government is putting a lot of legislation out forward, trying to make sure that our data is safe, information we put out there is safe. It is a bit scary, like you mentioned, that you can just go on Bing and you'll kind of come up with an easy summary of who you are online. But then again, I kind of like that fact because it kind of makes you aware of the fact that your information is out there and it's really easy to harvest. It's super easy. I mean, I don't know if you've seen some of the videos out there that kind of just demonstrate how easy it is to probably find you even if you take a pic. They can just find your location. It's really, really easy. And it kind of just speaks to, making sure that you're safe online, making sure that you take precautions. But of course, the space is growing exponentially. Do not kind of feel like I can't kind of use these tools because of the issues that are kind of there right now. In a year or two, there'll be new issues, and you kind of would have missed out on the early days. So there's a ton of tools. Just get stuck in, and I'm sure you'll definitely enjoy it. It's really good. I'll be honest. This is great.
I agree with everything they've said, and I would like to add to the fact, right now we're in a pivotal point in history, because over the last year, the general public has had access to AI tools in that space. The space in itself is advanced because everything's open source. Everybody has access to it. So all the big companies like Google, Microsoft, they're all in competition trying to exponentially grow with these technologies. But there's also people in remote countries who have access to these technologies who are building things that even these big companies cannot build. So right now there is an opportunity, because we are in early days of mass adoption of AI, for people to upskill. There will be a gap in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years between the people who know how to use these tools and the people who don't. Because the applications and the use cases of things people will be creating with these tools will separate artists, creatives, individuals, and businesses across the board. There's new job roles which are coming out as much as old ones are going out the window. For instance, a company has an AI advisor now, someone who would advise them on the latest advancements of AI. There was even a job 3 months ago which just came out of nowhere called prompt engineer. So when you type into ChatGPT, what you're doing is you're prompting it. But now there's a job role entitled prompt engineer to come up with specific ways to prompt ChatGPT and create certain responses. And these are, as many jobs are going to be created, there's many jobs that's going to go out the window. But we have an opportunity across the board to upscale, to learn and create practical applications and uses for this across the board, from culture to creativity to everything. And when it comes to the safety aspect, well, we're all in this together. So, you know, even the people at the top and even the people at the low, they will be honest with you and they can say that they know that this will do X, Y, and Z, but there's always outliers and anomalies. So have caution, have safety, and just, build.
1 second. So that was a great point in regards to prompt engineering, and everyone in this room can become a prompt engineer. And to become a prompt engineer, you need to be able to articulate yourself in a way that your end goal is clear. And the better you can describe what you want the desired output to be, the easier it is for these robots, these AIs, to understand what it needs to do. So it's all about just reforming sentences, using keywords, understanding what these AIs have been trained upon, and then articulating yourself in a way that gets your desired response. So anyone can do it. Just read more and talk to robots more.
Hello. I mean, I guess I'm the cynic in the group. I think it will cause a chasm, and I think, as you mentioned, we're in a pivotal role. I think we're in a pivotal role environmentally, politically, and technologically as well. And so I think there will be this acceleration, but I also think there will be a massive degradation at the same time. And so I'm wary. I'm wary of progress. I'm wary for the push of productivity, the push of profits. And yeah, I think it's scary in the sense, not that it's going to, take over, but I think there are problems that still haven't been solved. Legislation hasn't been matched. Fundamental things haven't been solved, and so with this technology, I feel like it will just further increase that. So I think I'm very cautious of its application in the future and whether it comes to a certain point and then it's just an implosion, but not to be too dark, but I think it's important that that we're able to be critical and be aware of the ethical concerns that are people that are writing about it, like Temnit Gebru and Abiba. There are lots of people that are questioning and challenging the use of AI. So I feel like we should be kind of aware of that and cognizant of that whilst we're using it for ourselves, because I think for many people it won't have those benefits at all.
And so that brings us to the end of the panel discussion. I wish we could go on for much longer. There's so much that still we can explore. Initially, we were going to take a break, but because of the time, I think it's an opportune time actually for us to get into the performance. piece of the evening. So without further ado, what we're going to do is actually introduce one of the panelists, first and foremost. Also known as Nomadic Libah, again, I'm not going to expose the government, is the founder of poeticallyperplexed.com, a platform for creative expression and showcasing diverse artists based in London. Nomadic Libah is a rhythmic-assisted poet who uses poetry to reimagine alignment and explore introspective questions. His works serve as a poetic running dialogue, inviting readers to broaden their perspective, explore, you can explore his portfolio, trying my best, his portfolio on her socials, inshallah. So without further ado, let's give Nomadic Libah a good round of applause.
So I write poetry, creative writing and stuff like that. So I have a piece I've performed in this same building before for Somali Week, a cultural festival, expressing Somali identity. So I have a piece about Somali Nimo. As you know or may not know, Somalia is called the nation of poets. Our history is an oral history passed down through thousands of years through Gabay and Barambur, which is poetry. And so I'm going to recite one poem called Nation of Poets. And it goes, Bismillah. My people's pain will never be in vain. The blood through my veins is how their legacy remains. I come from a derelict terrain where poverty and pain remain and never change. From dark days filled with death to war-torn towns with no prospects. A nation separated by colonial lines. A people divided by allegiance to tribe. Each tribe with their own pride so they can never put their differences aside for the betterment of their own people's lives. In the past, this wouldn't pass. People put into a different class simply because of caste. Oh my, how the world has changed so fast. Before the colonization, degradation, humiliation, separation, suffocation and asphyxiation of my sovereign nation, Somalia was an oasis of knowledge and creation. The ancient Egyptians called it the land of Punt, the land of God. The ancient Greeks knew it as the land of Barbaroi. The ancient Romans called it Regio Cinemaphore, the land of cinnamon. As far back as 2000 BC, the ancient Egyptians used to travel down the Red Sea for frankincense, myrrh, and whatever else they may need. Somalia was a place of wealth indeed. Somali people are nomadic in nature, known throughout the ages as Greek sea merchants and traders. Our history was not written in pages, but maintained through oral recitation. A pivotal point of the time of this great nation is when Islam entered the equation. This defining moment in Somali history created a sense of community. All became equal before one God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through testifying that there is only one God and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his messenger. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Community is unity. And when our people were united, they were immovable and enlightened. Through an understanding of the Holy Quran, they gained strength and built Iman, forging plans to pioneer and prosper for the greater good of the motherland. Thank you, too. Thank you all very much. Jazakallah khair. And I'm going to read one poem for you from here entitled In All of It. If you're looking through our lives, we're all thinking about all of it, but what is in all of it? Bismillah. In pain, we find peace. And in pleasure, we find release. فَإِنَّمَا الْأُسْرُ يُسْرًا. With hard times come ease. Same words on repeat. I said in pain, we find peace. And in pleasure, we find release. فَإِنَّمَا الْأُسْرُ يُسْرًا. With hard times come ease. Same words on repeat. So there is no need to be passive. When the trail paves its own atlas, it becomes a map to the path attracted. A balance for the fraction that broke parts into fragments, as each action holds a reaction. So within my mind is a place, and within my heart is a pain that flows through my veins, and of course, it lingers as it stays. Circumventing the navigation my brain tries to take as receptors overstimulate. Simply said, the things that weigh on my head play heavy on my heart. Is there enough time to make more of this thing called life? Is there a chance I can fulfill my why, to give in ways that give meaning to why? For in pain, we find peace. And in pleasure, we find release. فَإِنَّمَا الْأُسْرُ يُسْرًا. With hard times come ease. Same words on repeat. In pain, we find peace, and in pleasure, we find release. فَإِنَّمَا الْأُسْرُ يُسْرًا. With hard times come ease. Same words on repeat. Thank you. Jazakallah khair, everyone. I wish you a blessed Eid Mubarak.
I'm sorry, can we give another round of applause for that? Because that was amazing. Okay, to continue the creativity, we have an amazing young poet to join us. Sophia is a Milton Keynes-based Somali poet who delves into profound themes of identity, mental health, self-worth, and narratives encompassing struggle and hope through her poetry. With a passion for giving voice to untold stories, particularly those of parents and elders. We love an intergenerational story. Sophia uses her poetic talent as a means to bridge the gap between generations raised in diverse societies with contrasting perspectives and expectations. Her ultimate aspiration is to foster unity and healing among humanity. Wow. Counteracting the division and pain caused by the chaos of life. Can we please give a round of applause to Sophia?
Big round of applause to the panel today. Again, because it was very educational. And I'm one of those people that fear technology. I fear AI. Ali's heard a lot about it because we met in the poetry world, but it's interesting to be invited here and actually see how I am involved in AI, even though I didn't realize it. I'm a teacher, and so my students use it as well, and I didn't realize how pivotal it was for me to know about it in order to keep up with educating them. So they're educating me too. So this was actually a really important day for me to be here, so thank you. I should start with Assalamu alaikum. That's how I should have started. How are you guys doing? Good? Okay, so Bismillah. So the first poem that I'm going to read to you guys today is called A Time When. It's to do with like heritage, time, legacy, and I wrote it because I was just sat one day, and I don't know if you do the same thing, you probably do. I was just trying to think what life was like for our elders back home, our ancestors, centuries ago, decades ago, etc. Because I feel like we get caught up in the world of how the media portrays what home is like, and even the idea of home is something we constantly question. It's a very existential question that is always going to be involved in everything that we do. So in questioning what home is like and what home is, I just sat there and I started thinking the good that we had and we still have, but I feel like all the darkness has taken over, not because it's the most prominent thing, but I think because we highlight too much of that. So this poem is kind of trying to counter that. So yeah, Bismillah. Why is it moving? I'm not, this is like, I'm not doing good with the mic today. I'm just gonna stand here, yeah, okay. Imagine living in a time where Lumumba was your friend. A time where our precursors worked in unity to transcend the bitter ends from which they tried to mend the lamenting silent souls of our broken countrymen. Imagine establishing your nation's first orthography to apprehend the imposed colonial tongue's potency, where pens were drawn in the battle against barbarity, like in the old days where our forefathers used poetry to vanquish their adversaries. Imagine the leaning leaves of palm trees as an overcoat to the sun, where our parents strolled the streets unafraid of a gun, and life was blissfully fun because Africa had won over immoral politics that tried to keep us on the run. Imagining a future with and for your loved ones, where lovers quarreled about what's best for their daughters and sons, where the only bang at night was at weddings to the celebratory beating of drums, where neighbors conversed in poetic tongues from the roots of their gratified lungs. Imagine then being mad at yourself for relishing the pleasures of life, for not imagining the unimaginable, for holding a knife to the mind, for not having conversations with your children about real life, about the true capacity of evil that enshrines mankind. Imagine those mothers, sons, fathers, and daughters, once doctors, scientists, teachers, and authors. See, we are their lungs, their minds, hearts, and souls. So let us imagine so we can talk their talk through scrolls. So that last line was really about like how we're such an oral nation. Somalia is such an oral nation that a lot of things weren't recorded, and so it's created a huge gap. I think it feels a bit like memory loss. It feels a bit like amnesia, like we're trying to backtrack our roots, but a lot of it we can't find because it wasn't archived or recorded. So archiving is really important, and I think again technology comes into that. But that last line, let us imagine. So we can talk their talk through scrolls, is they talk, and we can also now record that by writing and typing and whatever other mediums exist. This next piece, I think of motherhood and the whole process of going through pregnancy and everything that encompasses it is an artistic process in itself. So this poem kind of manifested because I was thinking about motherhood as art. And creativity. So Bismillah, shout out to all the mothers. Yeah, to all the Hoyas, yeah. Bismillah. If you ask me, it's no coincidence that Women's Day and Mother's Day are in the same month. The month that marks a new beginning, blossoming reminders of growth, of how mankind is born from a tree in full bloom and born into a mystically earthly home. The nature of mother, the roof to our roots. It's no coincidence then that the first three letters of women and womb are the same. The natural habitat, a king's origin story, is after all rooted in the belly of a queen. Or that the placenta is a consumable root because a woman's love is devouring. It's no coincidence that it's in mother's nature to keep you breathing. It is the queen, after all, that brings the king's heir into the world. A baby fresh into this world is also known as a newborn. Is it a coincidence then that when you reverse write women and remove M and O, you get new? Okay, fine, I'm reaching, but still. Even in Somali, mother means home. And where we originate from is referred to as the motherland. We spend 9 months growing inside of Hoya whilst they pray for us to have a lifetime outside of them. For us to have a safe journey in life through humble roots. Ya Ummi, the roof to our roots. See, life without you is an empty pursuit. And women are the pillars and foundations of their home. How can you have structure without the two? Home is sustenance, where warmth, memory, most warmth, shelter, most memories are shaped and found. It's no coincidence then that the Almighty Lord gave women a leadership role most profound, or that heavy is her mind that's been adorned by her Lord, majestically crowned with the gems for generations that she will pass down. That when you see and hear her feet upon the ground, let those sounds serve as a reminder that it is her bejeweled feet that are a fundamental gateway to heaven, or that contrary to popular belief, motherhood is not an unpaid profession, a divine position that God willing will be paid in the highest figure, 7. What a divine position to have the potential to be the portal for man's holy succession. Mother, like the Pacific, to be central to this world and oceanic in our depth. Women, like energy to be a vital source for life and universal in our gravity. Mother, magical macrocosm to the mysterious microcosm. Our planet, oh how we used to orbit in your womb. Tranquil soul, your voice, our ultimate ultrasound. Heavenly entity, endlessly emanating empathy, eternally eclipsing us from life's tender burns. Rooted are you in us, so that we could stay grounded. Thank you. Jazakallah khair, thank you. So it's Eid today, and it's Eid al-Adha. For me, that's my favorite Eid, actually. I'm not sure if we're supposed to favoritize Eid, but I do. And I wrote this poem with, I don't know if you ever heard of a page called Nations of Poets. It was a page founded by this Somali sister, Halima, back in America, and over in America, not back in America. And it was a platform that was used by a lot of people during lockdown, and it brought a lot of people together. And actually, it was one of the places, actually, I think I met Nomadic on that platform, and Nations of Poet, he actually performed on there, so I was like reciting some of the words. It's actually amazing, the journey, to see how that journey has continued. So we wrote this poem because we were given a prompt to write about Eid, and they're all different. Some of them are really funny, some of them are really like deep, and one of them made me laugh so much because it was talking about like Somali household routines. Mine isn't like that, but Eid is such a beautiful day, and it's so much that, like, I don't know about you, but when you go to the prayer and you see everyone and all the preparation has led you up to the salah, that's my favorite part. So the poem kind of originated from me just imagining when you see everyone from every single part of the world together in one place, and the beauty of Islam to unify that many people and their differences, to just have that oneness again for the oneness of Allah. So I called it Mubarak, the poem. I'm not sure why, but we gather together to drink the sweet nectar of Eid delight. A once-a-year flavor we sip but savor like the sea does the moonlight. An increase in the Fahrenheit of smile, lines of light under the sunlight, sat as our children's laughter encourage prayers for a happily ever after in the hereafter. Here, cloaked in assorted garments, scented allurement of atar in vivid spirit like the sunsets in dhikr, the roots of our iman watered well with dhikr. 10 blessed days of Dhul Hijjah, Ya Allah, grant us Jannah. Mubarak is this day and us alive to see it. Through Qurbani we feed it to the less fortunate, an act of warm worship in memory of Ibrahim alayhi salam, words of wisdom spoken in dua between our two palms. If palm trees could blossom from our hands, then we'd be living in an oasis of Dar es Salaam. Eid is a spectrum of good vibes. To describe with colorful words does not suffice. In the future, we'll recite its memories of pearls with butterflies, but to summarize, Eid is a day in this dunya divided. Despite it, we remain lovingly united. Eid Mubarak, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Assalamu alaikum.
Another round of applause for Sophia, please. To end the evening, I just wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of Cade and Somalis in Tech for your attendance today. You could have been anywhere else, but you decided to be here, so Jazakallah khairan. Really appreciate it, and the support for the platforms is really important. And, you know, we have so much more coming your way, so stay tuned for that. That's pretty much it. I really hope that you enjoyed the evening. Eid Mubarak, and be sure to look out for the next event.